Begin. Good evening and welcome to this live webinar session. My name is Ralph Watson. For those of you who don't already know me, I'm going to hope that my throat holds up. I've had a very busy 4 days and it's taking its toll. So we are here this evening to explore the 4 blocks to performance. I've been coaching now for around 20 years. Coaching at a business level, coaching at an executive level, and of course life coaching as well. And in my experience and from discussions with various other very experienced coaches, I have come to the conclusion that there are 4 key blocks to performance. In other words, 4 things that very often hold people back from achieving their goals, from achieving what they want to or need to achieve. So my intention this evening is to briefly explore what those 4 are, talk a little bit around them, and then of course you will have the opportunity to connect with me. If you have some questions to ask, please do. I've got the chat function on in case anybody wants to ask a question, in which case please go ahead. So just making sure I'm all silent on the telephone front. So 4 key blocks to performance. The first of these is knowledge. In other words, there are people who may aspire to a higher role in their organization. There are people who have a current role in their organization in which they are either in reality or in perception underperforming. There are people who want to achieve things in their life, and for whatever reason they are held back by a lack of knowledge. And knowledge is fairly easy to come by as long as you are interested in finding it, as long as you are motivated to find it. So as a professional coach, and many of my colleagues who are professional coaches, one of the things that we do is to facilitate people in obtaining that knowledge. And I say facilitate because, of course, as coaches, it's not our job to teach. It's not our job to give information. It's our job to facilitate people in finding their own solutions. It's our job to facilitate people in reaching their goals rather than just handing it to them on a plate. So if one of my clients sitting in front of me demonstrates a lack of knowledge or determines that one of the things that's holding them back is a lack of knowledge, then my job is to facilitate them in finding that knowledge. And that's generally through simply asking them, okay, what are the gaps? What is the knowledge gap? And how do you fill that gap? So where do you need to go in order to get that? Some examples might be that somebody tells me, okay, I've started my business is going reasonably well, I've got a pretty good turnover, I want to really understand more about the finances of running my business because I feel that that lack of knowledge is keeping me from growing my business, is keeping me from understanding how to improve or how to manage my cash flow. So my question then is, okay, so where do you go to get that level of financial knowledge? And there can be many answers to that. There can be books for those who like to read. The wonderful University of YouTube is full of information that people can tap into. And of course, a lot of the local colleges provide evening sessions or daytime sessions at varying levels on understanding finance. I remember some years ago, I sent some of my sales account managers on a finance for non-finance people day at a local college down in the High Wycombe area, which they found immensely useful because it enabled them to understand more about what our finance team were faced with on a day-to-day basis, and therefore how they could interact with them and work with them. So knowledge is a key stumbling block to many people's performance. If you are a coach, then ask the questions that will determine if that is the obstacle. Questions like, okay, is there something that you know that you don't know and need to know in order to move you forward? And sometimes they'll say yes, and sometimes they'll say, I don't know. In which case, facilitating them in exploring their current knowledge set and where the gap is between that and what you determine together they need to have. So that's the first one, knowledge. The second one follows on from that, and that is skill, because skill is the practical application of knowledge. And many people feel or determine as a fact that they don't have a necessary skill in order to achieve their goal, in order to achieve their targets, in order to start moving forward in their life or in their business, in their relationship or in their connections, whatever their outcome is, they feel that there is a skill that's lacking. And once again, it's about facilitating people in obtaining that skill. And that can be done in one of many ways. Again, the question I ask is, what are the skills that you've got? What are the skills that you perceive you need to have? And how do you fill that gap? How do you actually get in there and make it happen? How do you help them to fill that skills gap? So that can be through facilitating them perhaps into exploring work shadowing, job sharing, if it's a workplace thing. It may be that you need to facilitate them into finding a mentor so that they can learn from that mentor how to fill that gap and build those skills so that they can move forward. It could be that there is a skill that's holding them back from actually starting their business. You know, I've met a number of people who wanted to start a business and they said, well, I have no idea how to do that. So that's a knowledge gap. And once they find out the how, they don't have the necessary skill to. So it may be that they don't understand the processes of doing things like business planning, of financial structuring. They may not have the necessary skills to get out there and sell, because in running a business, we are all salespeople. That's what we do. We sell on a day-to-day basis. So the questions are, what skills do you have? What skills do you perceive that you need to have? What's the gap? And then how do you fill it? And facilitating them in finding their way to actually filling that. So that's number 2. We've got knowledge, which is the lack of information. How do they find the information? Skill, which is the application of knowledge. And skills are often what hold people back from achieving what they need to achieve. And sometimes it's what seems to be the daftest of skills which people perceive that they don't have. And sometimes they do have them, they just don't recognize them in themselves. So help facilitate them in finding them, identifying them, and building on them. Number 3 is attitude. Attitude. How often do we find that we meet somebody and we think, ooh, don't like his attitude or don't like her attitude much? And how often do we as coaches find ourselves working with someone? I certainly do as a professional business coach. Sometimes I'm brought into organizations to deal with somebody, to coach them. It's almost like I'm the stick. They've had the carrot and now they're not performing. I'm the stick because they have bad attitude. So what is attitude? And can it be coached? Can it be changed? In reverse order, yes, attitude can be changed. Yes, attitude can be coached. What is it? In my experience, there are 3 things that drive this thing called attitude. The first are our values. And our values are the The things that we seek to strive to achieve in our lives at an abstract level, they're the things that we will put time and energy and effort and even money into getting at an abstract level. You see, money is not a value, family is not a value, things are not a value. It's the emotion connect in us, that which we seek to achieve for ourselves at a higher level. Those are our values. And so if a person at a conscious or unconscious level feels that their values are either not being stroked, for want of a better word, so their values are not being acknowledged, and they're being asked to do things that are at odds with their values, then that will frequently lead to a drop in their attention to the role that they're fulfilling, a drop in their attention to achieving what they need to achieve. And so values are key, they are critical. As a professional coach, one of the things that I frequently initially do with coaching clients is to elicit their value set. If I'm life coaching, then it's the full spectrum of values across every area of their life. And if it's as a business coach, then I focus in on their values in and around their business or their workplace role. So what is important to them, and then identifying whether those values are actually being addressed in what they are doing and what they're being asked to do. So that's one of the areas. The second connection in attitude is beliefs. Beliefs are what we hold to be true, either about ourselves, about our environment and community, or about the world in general. And if people have a belief which does not support what they are doing, then that belief may hinder them in doing it, because that belief connects with their values. And to me, in my model of the world, values plus beliefs will often equal attitude. And what we judge to be a bad attitude is often simply that person's values and beliefs are at odds with what they are doing, being asked to do, or being expected to do. To tell you a story, some years ago, I was giving an evening talk in Istanbul. And we got onto the subject of attitude, and a young man asked me, if I've got a bad attitude, can you fix it? And I said, well, I have one question and one statement to make there. The first is, do you have a bad attitude? And he said, yeah, I do. And I said, well, that's the question. And the answer is no, I can't fix it. You can fix it. So do you mind if I ask you some questions? And he said, yes, of course. I said, what is it you do? He said, I work for an electronics company. I said, okay, that's who you work for. What do you actually do? He said, well, I work in the shipping department. I pack gauges, electronic gauges. I have to wrap them in, I think it's bubble wrap, they call it. Then I have to pack them into a box, and they're packed 5 into a carton, and then the carton goes out for delivery. I said, okay, so what is the problem with that? He said, well, if I'm not really bothered about the job. It's a nothing job. It's an unimportant job. I don't like the job much. And sometimes I can't be bothered to do it very well. And things get broken, and then they get sent back. And then my boss calls me into the office, and I get into trouble. Actually, he said something else, but we won't repeat that live on air. So I said, okay, can I ask you another question? He said, yes, of course. I said, so you put the gauges into the bubble wrap, into the box, 5 into a carton, they go out on the van. Sometimes they get broken because you don't pack them properly, and they come back. He said, yes. I said, okay. What are these gauges for? What are they used for? And his answer stopped everyone in their tracks. He said they're electronic measurement gauges for life support equipment. So I said, okay, I'd invite you to think about this. In this nothing job of yours, in this unimportant job of yours, let's follow the track. You pack a gauge into a box and it goes to a hospital where it's used on life support equipment. He said, yes. I said, okay. So somebody's life is being supported by that equipment, which is being measured using that gauge. Yes. So if that gauge arrives broken, somebody is on a piece of equipment and their life is being supported by a machine with a gauge that's not working. And he said, well, yes. I said, and you tell me your job's not important? He said, well, I never thought of it like that. I said, well, let me tell you what I see. I see a young man who didn't understand the value of what he's doing, who didn't believe that his job was important. But your job, like everybody else in that organization, is actually helping to save lives. So my suggestion to you is when you go to work tomorrow, think very carefully every time you put one of those gauges into a box and just say to yourself, that's another life. That's another life. That's another life. See how that changes things. And he just sat down quietly. You see, many people don't think things through. They don't chase the dragon, as I call it, in thinking things through to a logical conclusion. So your values and your beliefs, what I call pre-programming, because a lot of what we carry around in our head is what we've put in there over years of life experience. For people like me, that's many years of life experience. For people like you, it might be a few less. And we've allowed other people to put it in there as well. How many people had said to that young man, so what, you just put things in boxes? I kind of fobbed it off, and this guy goes then tacks on the belief. So he's allowed himself to be programmed, and he's programmed himself. So attitude can be coached. It can't be changed by you, the coach, because we cannot change other people. We can only change ourselves. You facilitate them in exploring what are their values and are those values being acknowledged? Are those values being served? You explore them in ascertaining what is it they believe about themselves. Because if what they believe about themselves is not supporting them, then our role, and I feel in my case, my duty as their coach, is to facilitate them in deciding if they want to change that belief and then enabling them to do it, enabling them to reprogram, to change that program. So attitude is actually one of the most common things that I find myself working with as a coach. And interestingly enough, it's the one that so many people say to me, oh, you can't coach people who've got a bad attitude because they don't want coaching. They don't want to change. My answer to that is, no, they don't want to change because you haven't given them the reason to. You haven't helped them to find why they should want to do something different or think something different or be something different. And part of our role as a coach is to facilitate people in actually examining themselves and examining themselves in the light of sometimes good, hard truth. That's where the white wolf comes from, is that attitude of no nonsense, of saying to people, well, I want you to think hard about that for a moment. Let's dig into that. So that's attitude. And the fourth one, the final one, is aptitude. Aptitude. In other words, what some people describe as the basic ability to do a job. I heard a great saying once, and it went like this. You could teach a horse to climb trees. It's much quicker to hire a monkey. And sometimes, I don't know, in my many years in a career of sales, I sometimes found myself having people dropped into the sales team alongside me, or recruited by HR and then put into my sales team, and I'd got a horse rather than a monkey. And I say that in the nicest possible way. And you think to yourself, well, this is a square peg and they're in a round hole and somebody's trying to hammer them in. So it may be that they really are in the wrong place. And some of that will be about their own kind of personality style. You know, we read and learn a lot about things like DISC, MBTI, insights, all of these kind of things that determine whether a person is suitable for a job. Well, I've got news for the creators of all of those. Many of them are only snapshots of where a person prefers to be. That doesn't mean that they can't do anything else. And sometimes coaching is about working with a person to dig into and get the self-awareness that tells them, I'm a square peg and this is a round hole. So I now have choice. Do I want to continue being a square peg in a round hole, or do I want to round some of my edges so that I become a better fit? And rounding some of those edges may be about enabling them to understand their personality style so that they can work with it in terms of flexibility and adaptability. Some of it might be rounding those edges in terms of what we've already talked about, which is their attitude or their skill or their knowledge set. So that what happens is that we take the thing that people call aptitude and they say, no, come on, this guy's just in the wrong job. And we say, let's also look at their attitude, because I've met people who were told, you're in the wrong job, you should be doing something else. And they are in the job that they are burning to do, that they want more than anything else on this planet to do. And they will do and give anything to do that job. As far as I'm concerned, that's the attitude that can connect with and change the aptitude. So yes, coaching can work with people over an aptitude issue. And that's what I call coaching up. So you're coaching them up into the place where they can do that job. If they do not want to round those edges, if they determine that their choice is, I'm a square peg, I need to find a square hole, then you need to be thinking about, do they need to be coached out? In other words, explore their squareness and help them to identify, where is the square hole? Where out there in the universe is that square hole that has my name on it that I can drop into? Yeah. So those are the 4 key blocks to performance, whether it be in your life, whether it be in your work role, whether it be in your business. Those are, in my experience, the 4 key things that hold things back. And as a professional coach, those are the 4 things that I predominantly find myself working with people to bridge, to heal, to fix, whatever expression you want to use for it. And as a master coach, as somebody who trains coaches, we spend a good deal of our time exploring how you can facilitate people in changing at whatever level they need to change in order to do each of those things. So that is my short and sweet share. Try saying that quickly and see what happens. That is my short and sweet share. So let me give you some options from here on in. My website you will find at www.ralphwatson.com. That's www.ralphwatson.com. I'm quite happy for you to contact me through the website. There is a contact us button that you can click. For those of you who follow me on social media anywhere, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, then please feel free to message me directly if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them. If you want some help or support in what you're doing, I'm happy to give that. You'll find that I'm not ungenerous with my time and with my energies. Always happy to help. So please feel free to ask questions. Feel free to connect with me. I would like to say a huge thank you for joining me. That's been a great 26 minutes of my life. I hope it's been a valuable 26 minutes of yours. I will be, yes, I'll do a thumbs up as well. I will be downloading a recording of this, and it will go into my YouTube channel. And tomorrow, Tuesday, I will be posting a link to that YouTube channel. So for those of you who have not managed to join me on time, that's fine. You can pick up where you missed. And for those of you who have not seen it, this is the bit where you find out that you can now watch it. I'm going to leave you with that thought. I will be back with some more snippets and tidbits from the world of professional coaching. Until I see you again, I will say, as always, happy coaching and bye for now.